ridiculous. Well, here's the thing.
Maybe. Sometimes.
Tell me about this. I want to know more.
Oh, yeah. No.
Holy cow.
We've had a lot of fun.
So, excuse me if you hear lots of yawning coming from my end of the podcast this morning.
Oh, dear.
I don't know what it is, but I'm on a 3-week streak of no sleep.
Oh, no. Is it like no sleep because you have too much work to do, which is my problem, or just not being able to fall asleep?
I just can't turn off that switch.
Oh, that
Magic
switch.
switch.
Where is
Exactly.
that switch? I want that switch. It's just, you can't, the brain does not stop.
No, it doesn't.
That's so annoying.
It is. So I'm dragging today, even though I've had like the IV of coffee in.
Yeah, not doing the trick, huh?
Didn't work, huh?
No.
Oh, dear. Well, why don't you rouse yourself up enough to introduce the podcast here, and then you can take a nap while we talk.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Parenting Roundabout, a weekly podcast about the things that parents are talking about, obsessing about, and complaining about right now. I'm Nicole, and I am here in body. My mind is a bit slow today. With me today are Terri Morrow.
Yeah, I got about 4 hours sleep last night, so I'm good.
Oh, okay.
Most of it was on the couch, but did finally crawl in bed at some point. Catherine, did you get any sleep last night?
I did. I could always use more. But it makes me think of how when my son was a baby, we had this like big oversized armchair in his bedroom, and I would always fall asleep in that chair with him, and then wake up in the morning like in some really contorted position, with a baby somewhere draped over me. That was fun times, right?
Too many memories.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we are all somewhat coherent enough to speak on today's podcast, at least. So, despite the amount of hours of sleep we had the night before. Today on the podcast, we are talking about stepping in to help our kids, or not. We're going to share some ways our kids make us laugh, shout out some stuff we like on the Roundabout Roundup, and hear an interview with Meghan Corridan about both new and tried and true iPad apps for kids. But first, what's new with you guys? What have you been up to? Terri?
Working too much, as always. Which is the problem I have with sleep, which is that I get a wave of fatigue around 10:30, and if I work through that, then I can work all night. And I always have, this is the problem with being a freelancer, there's always work, there's always stuff to do, there's always one more thing I would like to finish before I go to bed, and then all of a sudden it's a ridiculous hour. And if I get past that sleepy time and I get into working some more, then it's very hard to go to sleep. So I wind up not getting enough until I finally get so, grouchy and tired and moody and, unpleasant that I have to just force myself to go to bed at a reasonable time. But I would like to get that under control. I always say I'm going to get that under control. I have not gotten that under control.
No.
It may be
I
uncontrollable.
miss summer. I slept a lot more.
Yeah.
Summer. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you didn't have to take kids places as much?
Yeah. Because no one had to be anywhere at 7:30 in the morning like they do now. So
do you have to be up before everybody to get them going, or do they get going on their own?
My high schooler gets herself up and starts getting herself ready. My middle schooler sometimes gets up, but if he does, he doesn't do anything productive. Like, he gets up, but he just goes and watches TV. He doesn't get himself breakfast, take a shower. He just resumes whatever he was doing before he went to bed. So I do at some point have to get up and muscle him along into and we've talked about this before, like, I want there to be natural consequences of him not taking care of himself in the morning, like not eating breakfast or not packing his lunch or whatever. But as with our topic that we're going to do today, it's so hard because the consequences of me not, making sure that he eats breakfast they're not good for anybody, so last week, I'm going to just launch in. Last week, we had a little sidebar discussion about whether or not Nicole should drop off some forgotten homework. And she never actually revealed what she did. But it got us thinking about that parenting dance of, like, do you or don't you? Especially, I think, now that our kids are getting older, it's trickier, when do you step in to help or solve a problem, or like force feed them breakfast, or when do you or should you hold back and let them handle things on their own, even if they might not do such a good job. So Terri, I know this is something you've been thinking about.
Yeah. One of the inspirations for this topic this week was something that happened last week. My son just started a new job. And they had called him in to come work for one day. And they had said it would be like 4 to 6 hours. And, 4 hours passed. And I thought, well, that's great. Yay, they're keeping him there for 4 hours. And then 6 hours passed. And I thought, wow, he must be doing really good. And then 7 hours came. And I'm like, well, what if he told them he was going to walk home and now he's in a ditch? So, and I'm thinking, I know that calling there is the wrong thing to do. Every instinct in my body says calling him is calling the place he works is the wrong thing to do. I was going to text him. My daughter said, do not text him. Do not text him. He will let you know when to come pick him up. Leave him alone. And every fiber in my being said that was correct. And yet it was so difficult not to do something, not to step in, so I finally did text and then was ashamed. And, and he called at like 7.5 hours. So, and it was fine and everything was great. And I had panicked for nothing, but you shouldn't interfere. You shouldn't step in. And yet as a parent, it's so hard not to, it's so hard to behave and not do that thing. Even when my kids were in college, I knew I shouldn't talk to the college professor. I knew I couldn't do that. That was not appropriate. So many times I wrote an email and sat there with my finger on the send button for a long period of time before deleting it. We've talked before about fighting your battles, but it's not, choosing your battles or fighting your kids' battles, but it's not even that. It's just knowing when to allow your kid to fail or knowing when to let them handle something, even though they wouldn't handle it the way that you did. And as, a parent who went through many years of special education advocacy, it's particularly difficult because I am very accustomed to going in and fixing things and talking to that teacher and talking to that therapist and calling a meeting and saying, this situation is not right, let's fix it. And that's just been my mode of operation for, 12, 14 years. And then to just, step back from that is really difficult. I'm not good at it. I have not mastered this at all. I am definitely the one bringing the homework and, doing all of that stuff, even though I know it's not good. Kids do need to learn how to handle things. And they need to be taught how to handle things. And I have not done that. So now.
Well, I think that's part of it, right? Like,
yeah,
teaching them how maybe it involves predicting a lot of stuff that you may, like you didn't know that maybe you should have told him, hey, if you're there longer than 6 hours, just shoot me a text. Right. So I know that.
But then I also know that, you're not supposed, he's gotten in trouble at other jobs for texting me. Right. So it's like, even that is like, I just need to have faith. I just need to hit the floor and say some Hail Marys and let it stop at that, which I did, by the way.
And it worked.
Yeah. And it worked. There you go. There you go. I've counted on that as my coping strategy quite a lot.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. I think my kids are at an age now, well, my younger one is 11, so there's a lot of like, when do you leave them home alone?
Yeah.
And, do you, like yesterday, he was riding his bike to school and coming home on his own because I had to take his sister to the orthodontist. And, I said, well, you can ride your bike, to and from school, or you can be dragged to the orthodontist. And so he chose riding his bike and letting himself in. And, but earlier in the day, I thought, okay, and then I'll leave him a note that says, get yourself something to eat, because I knew that then we would be going to his soccer game soon after I got home. But in the end, I made him a plate because I wanted him to eat what I wanted him to eat, not what he would pick out, whatever. So I made him a plate and put it in the fridge, and sure enough, he ate it. And I would never do that for my older one. And I don't know if it's just her or if it's just I'm babying the other one because he's the baby, So
that's hard. I know. I've recently had the experience of having to leave my kids home alone, and they're older. They're absolutely old enough to be home alone if everything goes according to routine. Right. This is the thing. It's like but what if somebody comes to the door who I would know not to open the door for? Or what if, there's a fire? What if, of course, all the things that you imagine as a parent. Sure. What if this happened? What if that happened? Have I told them what to do about this thing? What if they smell gas? Do they know what to do? If it's just another boring afternoon at home, there's absolutely no problem. So it's I've often proudly proclaimed myself a helicopter parent. It's hard to ground that thing. Nicole, how are you handling this? You're a teacher. Have you learned how to teach your kids how to be independent?
Well,
you have one of them who is at this point, right?
I do, yeah. So one of them, my oldest one, is off and away and living in his own apartment and going to university. So he's doing okay. He still needs, support. But my daughter, I was just thinking as Catherine was saying, do I pay attention to her more because of personality and her nature, or is it because she's the youngest one and I baby her? She just operates totally different to how I do, and I find it really stressful. And so a lot of times I jump in predicting or anticipating the worst.
Oh, yeah.
So and so I think I do that more than what I did that with my son, because my son, I just kind of trusted him to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. To work it out. My daughter, not so much. So last week, I did not take the homework to her. Instead, we had a conversation about how she could remedy the situation at that time, and then, do what she needed to do when she got home. So she ended up, doing, I guess she had to collect some work from somebody and then find a folder, and then because she had to hand in this booklet, so she pulled it together herself at school and handed it in. And
good. Well, good.
She was missing some parts and she'd add them in the morning. So anyway, I thought that was kind of successful. And right now, and once again, we are in a similar situation. So it's like the weekly, Mom, can you please bring me this? So today she's forgotten her inhaler.
That's
a health issue. So I have to go out and, I will go out and bring her inhaler. But
y'all need like a checklist or something.
Well, and we usually, we operate from a checklist most mornings. Even when I get in the truck, I'm, do you have, like one day she forgot her shoes. Forget your shoes. We pulled up to the curb in front of the school, and she looked down and she goes, uh-oh. So we go through the whole list while we're sitting in the truck where we've been back out of the driveway. And I guess I left off inhaler on the list this morning.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
I don't know. I worry about her future.
and it's funny because I said that I wouldn't, I wouldn't like put out a snack for my older one, but yet she's the one who can't find her way from like one school to another that's 4 blocks apart, or she's flighty about some things. Like she cannot manage to leave a room without leaving the light on, ever.
That's a given.
But yet, but other things she's totally like, I don't worry about if I ask her if she has homework and she says no, then I believe it. Whereas the other one is the one who's gonna say, oh yeah, like 10 p.m. So it's interesting, the things that one can handle that the other can't, and vice versa.
Nicole, sounds like you need to have like a bag in your car of all the potential things she could have forgotten.
Oh,
like a really ugly pair of shoes, so if she forgets her shoes, she has to wear those to school, and an old inhaler, and whatever. The current homework you can't help, but other things, whenever she forgets something, put a spare in the car.
That's how my one of mine stopped having potty accidents at school, because he or she did not care for the like lost and found underwear they get to wear after they if they needed it. Like, I am never wearing that underwear again. So it was some character that was too babyish or something. I'm not doing that. I'm like, okay, good. But please feel free to use the toilet, and then you won't have to wear that underwear ever again.
The power of shame.
Yep, it worked.
Wear my shoes because I said I am not going back.
Oh, you gave her your shoes.
That was a good idea, actually.
I gave her my sandals, and she was mortified. So she hasn't forgotten her shoes since.
Oh, that's wonderful.
They were an old, beaten-up pair of Birkenstocks. They were actually probably kind of cool, but
yeah.
She was.
Oh,
she was not impressed by that initially.
I think that's a victory.
Yes,
Yeah.
This is how we teach children.
The homework one was a really good like life skill of thinking on your feet and figuring out how to figure out an alternative.
Yeah.
And then the other one was the shame one, which we all know is effective also.
Actually,
absolutely. Public shaming.
Well, how about, is there a time that Terri or either one of you that you did step in and later you're like, well, it's a good thing I did, and it reinforced your helicopter waves?
Man. So many times, I think. When they were younger. But it's also what I find, one of the reasons I always worry about getting involved, and I often regret it, is that so often you don't actually know what the whole story is. And so you go in there based on your understanding, and it turns out that it was something else. So I had a time when, a boy was pushing one of my kids, and it seemed like a really clear-cut case of bullying. But once I got to know more about it, it became clear that my kid was not respecting personal space. And so this kid was just reacting out of his own particular, sensory profile. And so if I had known, I would have handled it differently. As it was, I think I just made things worse for that kid. And, there's been other times, certainly when my kids were in college, where I would barge in and tell them to do something, and then it turned out that I had completely misunderstood what needed to happen, and I had made it worse. So that happens a lot, and that's the problem with trying to handle things for your kids, is that since you're not actually there, you're having to interpret situations based on what you're hearing from them, and sometimes deliberately and sometimes just through lack of understanding, the picture that they paint is not always accurate. So you help with the homework thinking that this assignment had such a short deadline. How could the teacher do that? And then you find out that they had 3 weeks, or that happens to me a lot, that sort of thing. But, there's also been times, as I mentioned, with special education advocacy, where you just have to go in there and make it right. And if you hadn't, bad things would happen or continue to happen.
Right.
So that's always in the back of my mind also, that what if there was a way for me to fix this and I didn't because no one else is gonna, and then my kid becomes a victim.
It's so tricky.
One of the reasons I don't sleep at night. Nicole, was there a time where you intervened and were glad that you had been a pushy, overbearing helicopter parent?
Yeah, like last week when we found out that my son's scholarship didn't come.
Oh, yeah. What happened with that? Were you able to fix that?
Not really, but because I followed up on what my son had told me. If I had just left it there, things would have been far worse. We wouldn't have any chance to appeal. But so I followed up and looked into it. So now we have a whole process that we can go through to appeal, and hopefully he'll get it back. And yeah, I find I step in a lot with him when it comes to.
Well, it sounds, I mean, I think that sounds like an example of where you needed to. I mean, if he was just going to be like, oh, well, I guess it's gone, you know, you'd be like, hold up.
So I think I when it comes to, I think I step in with for different reasons with both kids. So for my son, it's more like executive functioning type stuff. Yeah. So I step in, you know, to make sure he's planned properly. He has enough money. He's paid his bills, you know, that kind of stuff. And then my daughter is more like, you know, day to day. Do I have to choose? She seems to be able to handle the assignment that's like 3 weeks out, but she can't handle it.
She can't wear shoes.
Wow. There's got to be some strategies for that. That's That's a problem. And that's a long way to go every day to rescue. You know,
well, maybe. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just talking about times where did have a successful experience of independence. I am really proud of myself that my son has another job where he works doing custodial work at a big football arena near us. And basically, we drive him into this place, drop him off. He walks into this huge arena. He spends like 8 hours there. And then afterwards, he makes his way back out to us at the car, which I still, after more than a year of him doing it successfully, cannot believe we let him do. Because it seems so unlike me to, you know, we really had a lot of soul searching about it when he first got the job. And the first day when we dropped him off, I mean, I think my husband really did not approve, and I was just sure I was never going to see him again. And, you know, actually said Hail Marys all the way home in the car. But you know what? He goes in there, he does his job, he comes out in one piece, he finds us in this whole crowd of tailgaters and people getting rides and traffic leaving the stadium. It's amazing to me every time, but I'm really proud of him, and I'm really proud of us for just saying, you know what, this seems extremely there's lots of danger signals going off, and yet he does it, and it's successful. And, you know, so sometimes sitting on your hands and just saying, you know, let's hope for the best here. Sometimes it does work out. Saying your Hail Marys. I highly recommend this, whether you're Catholic or not. You know what? It's very comforting. Find yourself a rosary. It passes a lot of worry time. You can play with
it's a nice short prayer.
It is. And you can say it over and over. It has a comforting sort of meditative quality to it when you're really trying to get yourself to not freak out and go intervene. And you feel like you're doing something. At least I do. Mary is very understanding.
She is a mother after all.
Yeah, right.
Well, we should move on to our more humorous
Speaking of the things that our children do that make us frustrated and make us worried and make us have to back off, today on our Friday speed round, Amanda joined us for a conversation about things our kids do that make us laugh. So a little much needed humor now interjected into our conversation. So let's listen to that. I think we could all use it.
So guys, I wanted to ask you for this week's speed round, what is something your kids do that makes you laugh? Could be something that they do now or maybe when they were littler. But I know I find my kids to be two of the people who can make me laugh quite often and easily. So Amanda, what's going on at your house that's making you chuckle?
My 6-year-old has taken up dancing, and not like dancing lessons, but like dancing to like pop music, and he has like 3 moves and they're hilarious. And it cracks me up every time because he thinks he's like got the groove on, and he's just 6, right? And he's dancing around, and it's hilarious to watch. And it's hilarious when he's doing it behind other people and they don't know he's doing it. And then the one that I was thinking about my older son, when he was probably about the same age, he did something really nice for me, and I said, "Oh, thank you, sweet. That was really sweet of you." And he looks at me, he does that like that finger gun thing, and he says, "That's why they call me honey." And it still makes me laugh. Like to this day, I think of that at random times, and I still laugh.
That's awesome. I love it. How about you, Nicole?
My son does some pretty awesome impressions. So one of his better impressions is from the character on the movie Napoleon Dynamite. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
Yeah.
Vote for Pedro. He really likes the main character, and and we love that movie because it's just so weird.
That was the movie John and I watched on our first date, just so you know.
Was okay.
Is that talking about weird? Like...
Yeah, so John, and so he has a Halloween costume to go along with, like that is of the characters. Mm-hmm. He'll put that on for Halloween or whatnot, and anyway, it just makes us laugh. Yes, he's got a good sense of humor. And my daughter, she just cracks me up because she's so like witty and wry, she's got that kind of sense of humor. So you'll be saying something and then she'll just come up with this comment from out in left field. Start laughing. She's a lot like my husband. We have a lot of laughs. Our family is quite we're not that conservative when it comes to humor. So
yeah, we aren't either, actually.
Yeah,
it makes me feel better.
Neither are we, which is why I'm having a hard time thinking of anything specific. We just laugh a lot in general. But I will say one thing because it involves the entire family. Anytime my husband and I hug and kiss, as we do from time to time because we like each other, everybody has a different reaction, and all of them make me laugh. My daughter looks disgusted and huffs away, which makes me laugh. My son will come over and put his arms around us and make it a group hug. And the dog barks at us. It's like, I think she wants me to back off her man, actually. But so we get a lot of laughs out of that.
Well, it's funny you said, Nicole, impressions, because that's what I was going to say for my son as well. Mm-hmm. He can do any voice, and he is so good at it. He can do Donald Trump. He can do Arnold Schwarzenegger. He can do like a evil Russian criminal, like, generic Russian. I think he got that from the Muppet movie where they had the fake Kermit who was Russian. He can do it all, and he's been doing it since he was like 3. So he cracks us up.
I will say there's one more thing. Like, we're a pun family, so somebody will say something and we'll just keep going. My husband, not much of a punner, so unfortunately we end up laughing a lot when he like makes the one pun, because he's so proud of himself. He's like, I did it, I got it, like I made the pun, and everybody's like, oh, we did that 3 puns ago, but okay, cool. So.
Thank you for trying.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for playing.
And remember that you can hear a new speed round every Monday through Thursday, and Amanda joins us on all of them.
Well, now it's time for us to bring you some of the things that we've read or seen or used recently that we want to shout out and share with you. Terri, I'm looking at what you are going to talk about, and I have no idea what it is.
Well, you should, because I found it as a result of a Twitter conversation we had with a tweeter who noticed you talking about writing down things to remind yourselves of things, and responded that she did that at all. Ann Douglas, I think was the name, and we were discussing different ways of remembering things. And Amanda mentioned that she would like something to be able to put a picture of her shopping list on her phone and then cross things off. And I thought, well, that sounds like something that exists. I had used scan programs before, so I, searched around in the App Store and I found this app called Skitch, which allows you to take a picture of something and then mark it up right there on your phone with, check marks, or crossing things off a list, or putting hearts above the picture of your dog, or, any other way. You can put stickers on it. You can put, you can draw things with your finger. And it looks like something that I will spend many enjoyable procrastination hours playing around with. So if you are looking for something either to mark up photos super easily, or to just play around with pictures of your dog with, I highly recommend Skitch. Check it out.
Nice.
There you go.
Okay, how about you, Catherine?
If this only applies if you have an iPhone and you upgraded it to iOS 10.
Okay.
So
I have done that.
And if you use the mail app that comes with the phone, like if you feed your mail through it.
Yeah. What does it do now that it didn't do before? Because I stopped using it a long time ago.
A couple things. One, as you know, I'm still using Yahoo, even though everyone tells me to stop.
And they just lost a whole bunch of your data, but I'm sure it's fine.
I know.
You changed your password, right?
I did change my password. But so a couple things are nice about this mail app these days. One is that it helps you unsubscribe to mailing lists.
Oh, nice.
So if you open up a message that's from a mailing list, it'll say at the top, "This is from a mailing list. Do you want to unsubscribe?"
Oh.
And you just click you click unsubscribe, and it will take care of it for you.
That is handy.
Which is really nice. Instead of looking at the very bottom for the fine print and blah blah.
Right.
So that I've been using quite a lot to weed stuff out. And then this is minor, but I love it. I save emails. I have a million folders in my mail. I have 6 different folders for skating related things alone. One for the club, one for the coaches, one for the judges, everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm always putting stuff in there, and it will figure out where it should go. It will suggest, when I click on file this, save this to a folder, it'll say, "This folder?" And I'm like, yes, that's the one. Put it in there. Instead of scrolling down this whole list of, like I said, I have many, many folders, and otherwise I have to scroll.
Oh, yeah.
So it predicts, and I can tell it, yes, that is in fact the one I wanted in, and it'll just pop it in there for me. I like it.
Very nice.
No kidding.
I've been using Google Inbox and liking that a lot. Those two things are not enough to make me switch, but those sound really good. I would like the inbox, the unsubscribe thing, because that's a pain.
Right. Yeah, it's very nice. I feel like it has cut down a little bit on my junk mail. So.
Excellent. And Nicole, what are you recommending this week?
Turns out I've been using my emojis all wrong.
No.
Really? I didn't know there was a right way to use emojis.
Oh, there's a whole thing on emoji etiquette.
Is there?
Yes.
Are young people behind this?
I'm sure. They probably know that. Yeah, they probably know how to use them. And then they just kind of look at us and roll their eyes.
Yes.
Because I've been using that kissy face heart one, and I use that all the time. And apparently it's a flirting emoji.
Is it?
And I use that.
I blow kisses to my kids with it. That's not okay.
No, it's supposed to be flirty. And I've been sending it to colleagues. My kids.
People been talking about you.
So I found this article. Well, the reason why I discovered that is I was reading an article on Mashable about emoji etiquette, and anyway, it's kind of funny. You can definitely have a good laugh at yourself. Fixing them all wrong.
I think we need to do an alternative set of emoji rules as to the way we use them. You know,
That's right. The parenting version.
Well, let's turn now to our occupational therapist for more digital advice, because once a month Meghan Corridan joins us. She's a pediatric occupational therapist, and she shares with us some of the toys and games and activities that she's found to use with her young clients and also with her own 6-year-old daughter. So today she's going to tell us about some of the iPad apps that she uses the most, things that can really come in handy now that the school year is underway and kids, you kind of know what you need to work on. Memory, to-do lists. I don't think she has those on her list, but anyway, so she's going to share some of her favorites. Some of them are newer, some of them are things that she's been using for a long time and really, really relies on. So here's Meghan. So we're happy to have Meghan Corridan with us again to talk this month about iPad apps. As an occupational therapist, Meghan is always on the hunt for really good iPad apps and games that she can use with the kids that she works with and with her own first grader. So Meghan has some suggestions for us today for some games that help build various academic skills. So Meghan, why don't you tell us what you've been liking lately?
Okay. So I use the iPad as a motivator. I don't use it independent. It's always with some other kind of activity. So if I'm working on a handwriting skill, I tend to use this app called Letter School, which is just a really fun, hands-on, learn how to write your letters and numbers app, and the kids love it. I've been using it for years, and it's so much fun. What I like about it is that it's got 3 different levels for you to work on each letter. So the first time is you just watch, you figure out where the letter starts, and you press like a dot, and a race car might go down a track, and you just watch how a letter is made. The second level would be you drag the line to make whatever letter. And the third level is you are actually writing the letter on a chalkboard on the iPad. And it's just really nice because there's this process that the kids work through. And then what I always do is I have a boogie board, or I have paper and pencil for the kids to then immediately practice the writing of the letter in real life. So it motivates the kids, especially those kids who really struggle. You do it in this real fun, playful way, and then you do it on paper and pencil, and they tend to be able to hold on to the skill much better.
Great.
A lot of the kids I work with have decreased fine motor and manipulation skills. They have a hard time holding pencils. They might have a hard time picking up small objects. So there's another game called Dexteria Junior, which is for preschoolers and young school age kids, and it works a lot on that, not only visual motor skills but manipulation skills. So learning how to pinch, learning how to point, learning how to visually track and catch different pictures, and it's fast paced. But kids can work at their own pace. So they encourage you to work as fast as you can, but you can also go as slow as you have to. And there's no penalty. So I really like that, especially for my little guys. And then, I might have them pick up small small buttons and put them into a container or something to then immediately practice that skill that we've been working on. I happen to have a daughter who is on the cusp of learning how to read. So I've been really looking for apps to work on that. And one of the ones that I found, and we're having a lot of success with, is this one called Trello Spelling. And it's a phonics-based app where you learn how to spell or read. However, you can set it to different levels. Okay. And her spelling has exploded after doing this, and she asks to use it. So it's been nice to find an educational app that she enjoys so much, and that is carrying over into her homework and learning how to read, because it's really hard to find good reading apps that keep kids motivated.
Right. Especially when there's so many other apps out there that they may want to be playing with that don't offer the same benefits.
Right. So one of the things that we do, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, is if we use this app, then she always gets to play like her silly Ever After High app.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what she earns. Like if she goes through the 5 levels, and she can then, we then spell the words outside of the app, and then she gets to play her app at the end. It's a win-win situation for all of us.
I saw, and I'm going to have to dig up where I found this, but I saw a good tip the other day about iPad use, where a mom was concerned about screen time use, and so she talked to her child about health food and junk food, and that was something the child could relate to in terms of foods we eat that are fuel for our body versus just fun to eat. And so they went through the apps on the iPad and talked about which ones of them are brain food and which ones are more like junk food.
Oh, I love that idea.
And then they filed, they made a folder on the iPad that had brain food apps and then one that had junk food apps. Oh. And so then they could, say, okay, well, you have 20 minutes of iPad time. You can use 10 minutes on brain food and 10 minutes on junk food, or whatever it is, or maybe, give them more, whatever works for your family, obviously. But I thought that was a good way to help a kid understand that, there is a difference between some of the things that we play with.
Absolutely.
But yet, a lot of the brain food ones are still really, really fun. So I don't know if it would be like a disincentive for the kid to play with those. It would really just depend on your kid, probably.
I mean, one of the apps that my kids love to use, I would consider could be filed in either one, depending on your kid. I think everyone knows who Mo Willems is, and the pigeon. So he has a great app called Don't Let the Pigeon Run This App. Uh-huh. My kids love it. And they have 3 levels, and it's one, you just listen to Mo Willems telling a story. On the second level, the kids get to make their story by choosing things. So Mo Willems goes through asks you 8 questions, and you pick whatever answer you want. And then he reads back the story to you with your answers.
Oh, nice.
And then on the last level, and this is for higher level kids, they actually answer the question in their voice. So he'll ask, what's your favorite number? And then you have to answer that. And then the story is read back to you in both your voice and Mo Willems' voice.
Oh, wow.
And the kids, it's great. So for kids I've got a lot of kids who are struggling with answering questions or being flexible thinkers and all of that. And it's just like a really nice way for them to work on that. I like to say it's like Mad Libs meets Mo Willems.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of when you were describing it. It sounded like Mad Libs.
Yeah. So it's like a good, and then I guess one thing you could do is you could use like a Mad Libs game with them afterwards, where they have to write the answers in. And there's so many ways that you can take any app and sort of make it a little bit more therapeutic or educational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've talked about this with you in other situations, whether it's with an app or a toy, but kind of reusing it or finding a way to recreate the scenario in real life, whether it's, writing with a pencil after practicing on the iPad, or doing a Mad Lib after you've worked on the Mo Willems app.
Right. And I say it all the time. It probably bores people, but I I like to have the kids use a stylus anytime they are on an iPad when it's appropriate, because you're automatically working on pencil grip. You're working on it makes it easier to generalize a skill. If you're working on a handwriting app and you're using a stylus and then you go right to, your pen and paper, it's sort of a nice natural progression.
Right, and a good way to practice. Any more apps that you've come across recently or have just loved for a long time that you want to mention?
One of the ones I really like, and it's great for younger kids who are learning how to draw, is called the Lazoo Art Box, and it's in conjunction with PBS. And it's basically like a coloring book that comes to life. So there's 3, you get to just draw, you get to color, or you get to, it's called, I think, squiggle. And you add details to pictures that are already there. So in one of them, they tell you to add bubbles. There's 3 people or animals on the bottom of the screen, and they say, your friends are blowing bubbles, draw the bubbles. So you would draw, you could practice circles, you could practice coloring in, however you want to do it with each kid. And then you hit play and that picture comes to life.
Oh, fun.
So it's really fun for the kids. They don't have the coloring book anymore, but they used to have a coloring book that I would use with it. So the kids would actually do it on the iPad, and then they would get to look through the book and we'd find the same page, and then they would get to take it home. Unfortunately, the coloring book itself is pretty hard to find these days, but the app itself is really good. And
it's still good.
Yeah. And then my old standby, especially for kids who are learning letters, is Endless Alphabet. Okay. And that is just, I don't even know how many words, there's hundreds of words at this point, but they introduce you to new words, and a monster comes over and he knocks all the letters out. You have to match the letters like a puzzle. And then once all the letters are in the right place, they do like a little 20-second to 30-second movie telling you what that word means. So they have everything. My daughter's favorite is belch, to celebrate, or kazoo. They're just all different words. So it really expands their vocabulary. But at the same time, kids are working on letter recognition. It tells you the sounds as you're putting the letters into the right place. For my older kids, I make sure that they put the letters back in the right order, and then they have to take that word and write it down at the end. Some of my even older kids, they have to take that word and use it in a sentence. I try and grade it and make it more challenging as they become older and more successful.
Right. Good. Well, thank you once again for all your great ideas. We will have links to Megan's blog, MAC&Toys, on our site for the podcast so that you can read more about all these apps and get links to them and find out more. So thanks so much.
No problem. Have a great day, guys.
So we always look forward to hearing from Megan, and she always has great ideas. And now we are going to move on to our own great ideas, Shameless Self-Promotion. And we're going to direct you to some things on our sites that we think you should take a look at. And we have contributions there from one of the dogs. So Nicole, what do you have to share?
Well, apparently my dog has something. There's an article that I have up on my website, and it's called 5 Easy Ways to Teach Students with Intellectual Disabilities. And it's been quite popular because it's just one of those things that teachers struggle to find information on. So it's thought I would mention that in case anybody is looking for ways to include and teach kids with intellectual disabilities.
Great. And how about you, Terri? What do you have to mention today?
Yeah, we're coming up on, we've just passed the 3rd episode of the new series, Speechless, which we've talked about on this podcast, and which has been picked up for the full season, I believe.
Yeah.
And I figure it's time I should write a little bit about it. So I will have a post about that up on my Parenting Isn't Pretty blog at mama2.blogspot.com. I'll have the link to it in our show notes here.
Great. And I am going to just mention this. I'm a little late because it was this past week was Walk to School Day. But it's actually the whole month of October is Walk to School month. So I have a list of 5 reasons to walk or scooter or bike to school. And that's at verywell.com.
Okay. Now, whose dog was that? Is that yours, Nicole, or Catherine's?
That's not mine.
It's mine.
She really wants to be a part of our podcast. She's trying so hard to get her point of view considered. You should just give her a little moment or two every episode. That's it for this week's episode of Parenting Roundabout. We hope you enjoyed it and that you'll join us every week. You can listen to podcast episodes on parentingroundabout.com or download them from iTunes. Please subscribe so that you get all of our podcasts and mini podcasts. You can also follow us on Twitter, where I am at Mamatude. Catherine is at About Family Fit. Nicole is at Nicole Eridix, and Amanda is at Amanda Morin. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter at Roundabout Chat and look for us on Facebook, Pinterest, Tumblr, YouTube, and Instagram too. Wherever you get your social media enjoyment, we are there. Best of all, stop by our blog at parentingroundabout.com and read recaps, find links on all the stories we mention, and talk back in the comments. Thanks to John Moran for our in and out music, and I wish everybody a great week.